Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order this virtual meeting of the Centerville Board of Education for Monday, May 24th, 2021. Laura, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl.
Here.
Mrs. Dernbaugh.
Here.
Dr. Rohr.
Here.
Megan Sparks.
Here.
Mr. Schroyer.
Here. I would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 on the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please?
Mr. Schroyer, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments of removing items 5 and 6.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second that, please.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh.
Yes.
Dr. Rohr.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes.
Mr. Schroyer.
Yes. Item number 7 on the agenda are the board and administrative reports. 7A, the legislative reports, Mrs. Sparks.
The House passed House Bill 244. The bill would require K-12 students to allow military children who are relocating but not yet a resident of the district to enroll electronically and participate in technology-based education opportunities. The House Primary and Secondary Education Committee amended House Bill 73, which would reduce a number of end-of-course exams required for graduation from 5 to 4 by requiring a new single American History and Government exam, beginning with the class of 2024. The bill would also require school districts to work from a working group to evaluate the amount of time students spend on testing. They would also eliminate the requirement for the 11th grade students to take the ACT or SAT and prohibit student retention under the 3rd grade reading guarantee. The amendment removes the ACT and SAT provision due to another bill containing the same provisions. The same committee also amended House Bill 105, which would require public schools to provide age-appropriate instruction in child sexual abuse and sexual violence prevention, and require in-service training for staff in child sexual abuse prevention. The amendment requires parental notification and allows the parent to review the material. The Senate Select Committee held a second hearing on Senate Bill 176, which would legalize, regulate, and tax sports gaming, prohibit betting on any sports or athletic event for primary or secondary school students, and require that 98% of profits be used for the K-12 education. The Senate is still hearing testimony on House Bill 110. I did send a letter asking Senator Antoni to support the bill and advocate for our preschoolers to be counted in the busing. He thanked me for the district information that I sent him, and I believe that he will be a supporter of House Bill 110. I did put a copy of that letter on each of your desks, so you should have it. And also, if you notice in this April's journal, there is a letter by Rick Lewis talking about the new funding plan. So check that out. So that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sparks. Agenda item 7B, the student board representatives. I'll throw that back to you.
Yeah, I believe Zoe and Katie have a report to give tonight.
Yep, so just one thing. We finished up our interviews for the next year's student board representatives. We interviewed a bit over a dozen candidates, I believe, and we've selected 4 really, really strong people who are going to join Zoe in representing us next year. And we'll be sending out their acceptance letters in the coming days.
we're waiting on telling people the names until the students have been notified if they made it or not. So,
Can you tell us what classes they are?
let's wait on
There,
that.
there will be 2 juniors and 2 seniors, 2 boys
Okay.
and 2 girls.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to tell you what, we had these board interviews and man, these kids were strong, all of them. Anything else, Megan?
No, I believe that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7C, April 2021 Treasurer's Report. Miss Sauber, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our 5-year forecast since that is on your agenda for approval for tonight. So the update that I'm giving to you tonight, and I did put a copy of the ODE format of the agenda or of the 5-year forecast at your seats when we were in person tonight. And so it's the same numbers that we talked about at the work session. It's just in a little bit of a different format that ODE requires it to be. So we'll talk a little bit about our property tax collection, a little bit about a state funding update. And then I'm going to talk about our current expenses for the year and the impact that the CARES and ESSER funds have had on those expenses. And just as a reminder, this is the second filing that we're required to do to the Ohio Department of Education. We're required to file in November and then again in May each fiscal year. So this is a very regular thing that we're doing tonight. From a revenue standpoint, we had estimated that our property taxes would be about 83.9 million, and those collections came in at 84.3. So it's to the good or additional collections of about $446,000 for the year. It's a very small percentage in terms of our whole collection, but we're happy that we collected more than what we had estimated. And then on the state funding side of things, we had estimated 13.2 million in revenue, and we're actually going to collect about 13.9. And that is due to the executive order that Governor DeWine signed back in January that restored some of the funding reduction that we had back in fiscal year 20 when the pandemic started. So that is an increase of $755,000 in revenue for this year. And we carry that forward then in the future years. So for the most part, when we look at state funding, we talk about just kind of flatlining that and going with status quo from one year to the next. So we carried that additional $755,000 over into future years. This just gives you a little bit of a picture here of what our property tax collection has done over the last 5 years. We had a little blip in 2018, which was due to some federal tax legislation in the timing of when people paid. And that's why it came back down in 19. And so these really kind of level it off. But then in fiscal year 20, we had the first half of a collection for the levy that was passed in November of 19. And now in fiscal year 21, we're seeing the full collection of what that levy did from 2019 that passed. So I just wanted to give you the visual that we are fully implemented now from that levy that passed. So from an expense standpoint, we're currently spending about $3 million less than what we had planned for the fiscal year. And that is due to a few reasons. And so I'm going to outline a few of those for you tonight. Wages were about $1 million under what our estimate is. And the first area that honestly we were surprised at as we kind of dug into this a little bit from an administrative standpoint was for payments for substitutes. We were assuming that because of COVID and quarantining and people being out, that we would see increased costs in our substitutes, but that has not been the case. And part of that is because we've been in virtual settings and things like that throughout the year. But I'm happy to report to you that we are spending well under what we were estimating for substitutes. The rest of it just has to do with the reductions and attrition that we had last year. We did make reductions going into this fiscal year. And then we did have some retirements and things of that nature. And so those savings have just come in a little bit better than what we had anticipated. Part of that $3 million, then $500,000 was due to a one-time refund that we received from the Montgomery County Auditor. And that was a tax assessment refund fee that we received. And I did report back on that quite a bit in January. Curriculum, we have been able to reduce some of our expenses from the general fund because a lot of the things that we have purchased has been to handle our different our learning styles that we've had throughout the year of the blended learning and the remote settings and things like that. So we've been able to use our federal funds to purchase a lot of those items. And then the same thing goes for our business services. A lot of our cleaning supplies, HVAC filters and upgrades and things that we've done. Utilities, because we've been in the buildings less than what we are in a typical year. Even now we're remote on Wednesdays. And so that's one less day a week, you know, that we're transporting all of our kids. We're still transporting on those days, but fuel for our buses, costs of our buses, those things are just a little bit lower this year because of the style of learning that we've been doing this year. So the key assumptions, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what goes into this May forecast. Outside of just updating fiscal year 21, we've updated those actual numbers for property taxes and for our state funding, and then shown some decrease in expenses for those things that I just outlined. We do show some growth in our property taxes for new construction. There continues to be new construction all the time. As again, we talked about that a couple times through this year. This forecast assumes that we will be passing the $9.5 million emergency levy that is set to expire in 2023. And so we have built in there that we're going to go back on the ballot for that renewal when the time comes around. And so those will be discussions that we'll be having later on. And then also state funding, we've flatlined the state funding at the increased level. Like I said, we added back the $755,000. But then we flatlined it for the most part. It's really early. Mrs. Sparks mentioned the biennial budget. The Senate is hearing testimony on that budget. It's just too soon for us to know for sure if we're going to get additional money out of the state budget. And so that for sure in November, you'll see an update. All those details will be settled out and we'll know more in the fall. And then on the expense side of things, we did at the last board meeting, we approved our negotiated agreement with employees and all of our support staff and administrative staff. So that has been factored into these numbers in front of you tonight. And then the underspending that I outlined for you in the last couple slides, we have not carried that forward to the future years. We're still working out exactly how our ESSER money is going to be spent, this ESSER 3 funding that's coming in. And so I look for there to be some adjustments to our financial plan, at least for next year and maybe even for a couple years. But like I said, we're still working out those details and we'll give that information to you in the coming months. We'll be talking about that. And so the print here is small, but I wanted to make sure that I included the figures. This is the format that I gave you last week. The ODE approved 5-year forecast. It looks a little bit different than this in terms of just how it's categorized, but the bottom line is all the same. This is just a little bit shorter, a little bit more of a summary version. So that's the end of my report. I'm just going to leave the numbers up here just for a second and ask if you have any questions.
Hey, Laura, how much did we get in ESSER funds? How much have we spent and how much do we have left? Do you have any idea?
There have been a lot of several categories of money, Mr. Schroyer. The most recent, I believe that Mrs. Colopy is on the call too, but the ESSER 3 funds that's coming in, our initial allocation is over $3 million. That we're in the process of budgeting right now, and that's just the initial allocation. I believe it's going to be closer to 5 million is going to be that amount. We haven't even started spending that yet. We have a 3-year window to spend those funds, and so we'll be looking at things like our summer programs and things that we're going to be doing. I know there's some intervention plan for next year in the area of math. and some different things that way. And as we get that flushed out through the summer here, I expect that we'll be reporting to the board more information on to detail that out.
So that those ESSER funds are not figured into this 5-year forecast at all then?
It's not. Those are accounted for completely separate. And the reason that I've not made any adjustments yet is because we do plan to do additional things for our students, like some of the summer programs, transporting those students for the summer. That math intervention is something that we're currently not doing. Those are additional costs. And so we'll be handling those items out of the ESSER funds. And then if there are some offsets to the general fund, we'll make those adjustments through the summer.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, that's the end of my report for tonight.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, we're going to go to the action items here on the agenda. Item number 8 are the treasurer's recommendations. 8A, consider approving the April 2021 financial statements, including the monthly general fund rolling report, the monthly general fund breakdown, the monthly cash reconciliation, the monthly fund activity report, then and now purchase orders approved by the administration, certified by the treasurer, and supported by board resolution totaling $36,072.30. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Laura, call the roll.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item 8B on the agenda, consider approving the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings. April 26th, 2021 regular meeting, May 17th, 2021 special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item 8C on the agenda, consider approving the general fund 5-year forecast and assumptions for submission to the Ohio Department of Education as we just discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on that, you guys?
Laura, I just wanted to clarify, this is the general fund only. This does not include any permanent improvement monies, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Good question. Anything else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item number 9 are the superintendent's recommendations. 9A, the superintendent recommends the employment or change of employment status for the support staff personnel listed on Schedule C for the salaries, programs, and on the effective dates given. The superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedules D and D1 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. The superintendent recommends the granting of leaves of absence for the personnel listed on Schedule E for the reasons and on the dates given. The superintendent recommends the reemployment of non-renewed personnel listed on Schedule G for the reasons and on the dates given. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Any discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item number 9B on the agenda, consider approving Adam Chiarello, Director of Secondary Curriculum and Instruction, Cherie Colopy, Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction, Tammy Drurup, Director of Student Services, Dan Tarpey, Director of Human Resources, and Laura Sauber, Treasurer, to apply and act as authorized representatives for Title I through Title VI-B, and for Andrea Contestable for the preschool grant. Can I have a motion,
So
please?
moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any comments on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item 9C on the agenda, consider authorizing continued membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item 9D, consider the following ESSER 2 fund projects. D1, a resolution approving the procurement of cleaning and disinfecting services for HVAC equipment to reduce airborne transmission of viruses, bacteria, and germs to improve air quality from Weibel Energy Systems. The cost is to not exceed $95,822. Item number D2, a resolution, consider approving a resolution approving the procurement of HVAC rooftop units to improve air quality from Weibel Energy Systems through the participation in a contract of the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. The cost is to not exceed $153,049.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on using those ESSER funds from anyone?
These are both ESSER 2 projects. So we still aren't dipping into the latest ESSER 3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else, anybody? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. 9E on the agenda. Consider a resolution reapproving the Career Technical Education Compact for Centerville, Kettering, and Oakwood School Districts contract to cover the 2021 through 2026 school years.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Henderson, could you touch on that a little bit for the public, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Schroyer. For many, many years, 3 districts have come together in a compact for career and technical education, and that's not only us in Centerville, but Kettering and Oakwood. So we have fantastic programs, and we basically provide an opportunity for students from Centerville, Kettering, and Oakwood to come together. Sometimes the programs are held here at Centerville, other times they're at Kettering. But this is actually a cost savings to our community. It saves about $1 million of dollars that do not go up to the Career Technical Center because we have our own in-house career education program. So it's a very strong program, and it's a lot of great programs both in our district and also in Kettering. And again, it works out very well.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. 9F on the agenda, consider a resolution reapproving the Montgomery County Learn to Earn initiative, reaffirming our commitment to work in aligned partnership with Montgomery County's 16 public school districts, regional post-secondary providers, Montgomery County Educational Service Center, and Learn to Earn Dayton to advance cradle to career success for students.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Henderson, I hate to ask you to do this again, but can you touch on that a little bit, please, for the public?
Absolutely. Learn to Earn Dayton is a very strong program. And about 10 years ago, the Board of Education approved a resolution basically saying that we and the other 16 Montgomery County school districts were going to work together. And the goal was to make sure that we would do anything and everything to make sure that all students were successful, not only successful in completing high school graduation, but making sure that they had a plan after high school graduation. And that was looking at some options of either going on to some post-secondary educational higher ed institution or going to a career technical school to get a industry credential. And the whole goal is to increase the intellectual capital here in Dayton and Montgomery County area so that students have an opportunity to make a good living wage. So there's lots of opportunities out there for students, and all of us as the Montgomery County school districts are a solid group, very tight-knit group, and we work really hard together to make sure that students are given any opportunity that they need, and we support them in many different ways.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. We're down to 9G on the agenda. Consider approving the following Title IX Neola policy revisions that we discussed last week, and you were given copies of last month. Revisions numbers 1422, 1622, 1623, 2260, 2260.01, 2266, 3122, 3123, 3362, 4122, 4123, 4362, and 5517.
So
Do I have
moved.
a motion? Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Those corrections that Mrs. Sternball brought up last week, they were the contact information, those were corrected, correct, Dr. Henderson?
That's correct. All of that's been corrected. And after tonight, I'll reach out to Neola and they will make sure the corrected copies are in place. So we're good to go.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernball,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. 9H on the agenda. Consider approving a resolution submitting the questions of renewal of an existing tax for the purpose of current expenses for the Washington Centerville Public Library to the electors of the Centerville City School District pursuant to sections 5702.192 and section 5705.23 of the Ohio Revised Code. Again, Tom, could you explain to the public the relationship between the library and the school district, please?
Absolutely. So we have a fantastic and amazing local library system here in Centerville and Washington Township. And but by the Ohio Revised Code, there are certain actions that the Washington Centerville Public Library takes that the public school district where they're located in must act on certain things. So some of those have to do with the appointment of the library trustees. And the other thing is that when they take out a resolution to be back on the ballot, and that's exactly what the Board of Education is doing tonight. This is not, the school board is not, on the ballot for a levy in November. This is basically an Ohio Revised Code mandate that the public school district approve what the library is going to do. And I believe they're going to put a renewal of the existing tax levy on the ballot in November. So this is one of the statutory steps that needs to be taken for them to continue to move forward in this process.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the roll, please.
I need a motion first, Mr. Schroyer.
I'm sorry.
So
moved.
moved. So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Laura. Call the roll.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schroyer.
Yes. Item number 9I are safety or health and safety protocols. There have been several news stories since last week about updated COVID-19 guidance, both within the state of Ohio and across the country. The latest guidance that school districts received from Governor DeWine on May 15th states the following, quote, while Ohio will be amending its health orders to comply with new CDC guidance in order to maintain consistency and model safe behavior for Ohio students, these changes do not affect the existing order requiring the use of facial coverings and other safety protocols in our schools. With limited numbers of students vaccinated, it is important that we continue to practice safety measures through the end of the current school year, unquote. Therefore, the Centerville Schools' current face covering policy will remain in effect through the 2020-2021 school year. This means that face coverings will continue to be required for all staff members and K-12 students and preferred for preschool students through June 4th, 2021. The Board of Education will continue to evaluate the guidance over the summer and make decisions regarding the 2021-2022 school year later in the summer. Item 9J, again, health and safety protocols for students who are participating in optional summer school and intervention programming at Centerville High School. Facial coverings will be optional for staff and students. The wearing of face masks is recommended for individuals who are not fully vaccinated, and everyone is welcome to wear a face mask if they so choose. Please consider a resolution approving the change of wearing face coverings for students and staff participating in the Centerville High School Summer School and intervention programming for this 2020-2021 summer session to be optional. Any comments, discussion, anything on that from anyone?
Are we supposed to vote separately or vote collectively on these? Dr. Henderson, I don't remember how they're set up.
J and K, you can vote separately for. There
Are
was
they, are they inconsistent with each other? Are they supposed to be that way or?
Right. Jay was making optional the wearing of face mask at Centerville High School for their summer program for the older students. And item K was for the younger students, K through 7th grade, for their optional summer intervention and extended school year programming. That's kindergarten through 7th grade. So those are two different resolutions that would be taken separately.
For the summer school program, the 8th graders are lumped in with the high school for purposes of this.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Call the roll, please, Laura.
So I don't have any motions.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So is this just a motion for letter J then?
Yes, it's just a motion for letter J. Could I have a motion approving the resolution for the change of wearing of face coverings?
So moved.
Any seconds on that?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
No.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Item 9K, for students who are participating in the optional summer intervention and extended school year programming, kindergarten to 7th grade, face masks will be required for staff and students, as most of those participating will not have had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. Could I have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Are we good, Laura? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
No.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
No. That motion passed. Item number 10 on the agenda, could I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier.
Yes. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thank you.